This is Life as a Dance, and I am solo today without Taras, but I'm so excited to have Patty Contenta with us. Yay!
Hello, hello.
She was here coaching, but she is so much more than just a traveling consultant with Arthur Murray. So I'm going to turn it over so Patty can tell everyone a little bit about yourself and like how you got into dance and what is happening in your life now.
All right. Oh my gosh, how I got into dance. That's a longer story, but long story short, I was recruited in a club. You know, I was a salsa Latin club dancer for many, many years. And someone offered me a job to teach dancing, and I couldn't believe that I would get paid to dance all day. So I thought that was great. And then ended up working with Danielle. We had a great it was awesome working with him, and then we had a great partnership where we owned a studio together, then eventually bought him out and continued with Laval by myself, where I, moving forward about 15 years, maybe a little less than that, sold it to a couple that worked for me, and they were great, and to this day they have it, so they bought it and are continuing with that, and I stayed on as consultant.
Nice.
Meanwhile, I'm having side hustles, one of them being an online business called Sensuality Secrets, which was birthed really through a personal challenge that I was living, which was my divorce, and went through questioning, why did this happen? What do I need to learn from this? And in the process of going through that self-discovery and trying to figure out what was the point of all that, and me trying to gain my confidence back through that process, I sort of created this online business because people were telling me, you have a great way of helping women feel more feminine, men feel more masculine. You should really work on that. And it was kind of dropped on a side note. And then through my own personal journey and doing a lot of researching and studying under people like David Data and many other people that talk a lot about this, started to relate it a lot through dancing. So it's yin and yang, masculine and feminine, and how do we create polarity through understanding each other's differences when you're not dancing, but then imagine also when you're dancing, how can you enhance that so that you create this kind of chemistry and connection that everybody wants when we see a couple dancing on the floor. So then using the same knowledge of masculine and feminine within the coaching, but also on the side, outside of dancing, how do you do that within relationship, teaching women how to be more charismatic, how to have body confidence, what does that even mean? So defining all of that so that they have some sort of a way, women, but also men, everybody wants to be charismatic. So what does that mean? So I define it. I give them a guideline on how to create that in their lives and also own body confidence, because as women, we tend to be quite hard about how we look. Yes. Especially as we get older. So I know I went through that also. That was another stage of, going through menopause and saying, oh my God, I have lost control of my body. What do I do? So that sort of all these different areas in my life where I went through a self-journeying and self-healing and trying to understand. And then I'm all about systems, even when I'm learning my own process, and then create a system on that so I can then share it with others.
Right. My gosh, I'm sure everyone that was just listening, especially women, there's like so much I would want to talk about. So we will be doing more interviews with Patty.
There you go.
Because there's so many sidebars. I'm like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So, I think of course, considering the insanity that we've all lived in the last couple years and just the life lessons we can learn through adversity or pain or struggle that we go through. Knowing you for many years, I wouldn't even known those things about you, because to me, you always had that about you, that confidence, and just watching you dance competitively and how you interacted even when you'd come to our schools in Rochester. You just, to me, were always that person that you just had it together, and Patty was always so confident. And I saw those things even before that, which is really interesting that it took personal struggle for you to even maybe become aware of those things about yourself. That was like, here's something to tap into, and then flourish with something like that. Because you wrote a book. How long? Because that was a long time ago that you wrote the book, right?
Well, so I wrote their ebooks. So the first one was Sensuality Secrets, but then most recently, which is within the last 5 or 6 years, I revamped it, now called it Desirable and Deserving for Women, right? So I focus specifically on women and understanding masculine and feminine energy, and even dating, it kind of gears a little bit to that and understanding, that. So I kind of just focus on that area within desirable and deserving. And again, it's about confidence. Again, what is the meaning of sexual energy versus sensuality? How do you even gain that in your life? What are the aspects that you can develop that? What does it mean to be a sensual woman, and how do I put that into my everyday life? Well, these are the components of it, and this is how you bring that in. So everything was this second book, which I revamped. It was really to get more clarity, define everything, because having any kind of conversation about any topic, we always sort of need a baseline in defining what are we talking about, and what is the premise, or what is the definition of what I consider sensuality,
right,
so that then we can have a discussion based on this definition, so that, because we might have two different viewpoints, and it's not to say that this is the right definition, but if once I define it, then I go from there and say, so this is how you add it into your life. And then someone else can have another definition and say, oh, tell me how you define it, right, and how you bring that, versus this abstract idea that we're not sure how to grab. So any concept, I'm talking about sensuality, but it could be anything. How do we define it? When my coach, even in dancing, said to me, dancing is the art of weight transfer. So simple yet so profound, because there's so much involved in moving from one foot to the next.
Right.
So how do you do that? And so it's an art, which means there's so many things, and art is also leaves room for imperfection, yet discovery and exploration. So there's so much about that life. There's a system, but then you go beyond the lines and you start saying, here's the outline of it. Now, how do we stretch it? And how do we go beyond the boundaries so that we create something that has art and meaning?
Right.
So you start with a baseline and then go out, right? Yeah.
It's interesting, like the topics that you cover, like sexuality, sensuality, or like menopause, these words are, I don't know, the taboo, or like it's almost, I don't know, do you find like people feel not shame, but it's like it's either one extreme or the other, right? It's like people hear sensuality or sexuality, and it's like, oh, or it's the extreme of people don't even know, they can't even utter the words or connect with it. Or as women, we're like, people going through menopause don't even want to admit it or bring it up because of what comes with that. So I feel like with what you do, engaging with women, I mean, it's got to be pretty profound for you. You must see women, like, what would you say, whether it's yourself or someone else, like transformations, that must be so fulfilling for you to help women and men tap into things that maybe they've never been able to or afraid to.
Right. Because there's a lot of things you said there. One is, when it comes to words like sexuality, sensuality, we have, as a culture, as a society, we have a bipolar relationship with it. On one hand, we're ashamed of it, and on the other hand, it's everywhere in our advertising, right? So it's in your face, yet we can't talk about it. So there's this duality between that whole concept, right? And it's uncomfortable sometimes because of that, because it's there, but there could be some shame and even some, unfortunately, abuse or other things that could be attached to that can stop someone from fully expressing that part of them. So this again is part of the conversation is to define it so that we could understand, to make it okay to talk about it, which means, sexual energy is creative energy. It's where we all came from. A man and a woman got together and created another human being. So there's something actually beautiful about the creativity behind sexual energy, that it's actually something that gives you an aliveness to create. So if you allow it to be harnessed and used, you can create. It's the metaphor to creating, not just birthing a child, but birthing ideas, birthing books, birthing studios. it's an energy that has that kind of rawness that is very strong versus it just being in the head. Right. So there's the imagination, but then there's where the actual energy, I don't know how else to explain it, but this vibe that is transmuted in the lower chakra, if you will, and that can come out, right? So we want to accept it for a creative energy versus just about penetration. It's beyond that.
Right.
So when you define it that way, then or can see it in that manner, it's easier to then say, yes, I want to move my body in a way that allows me to perhaps explore parts of me that I have kept cocooned because of shame or this or other things that may have happened, right? Or inappropriate things that I'm afraid to look this way. And women specifically, because of upbringing, can hold that back, whether it's because they work in a masculine environment, and so in order to be professional, they've not allowed the other part to show up because they might bring on attention that might not be appropriate. So I need to be powerful, I need to be strong. Then there's your upbringing of your childhood and, what generation you're from, where you have to be proper, not show that. And then other times it's abusive things that may have happened that better if I close that off, that way I don't draw attention to me in a way that might create danger. There's so many things that's involved in that. So the beauty of dancing is it creates a safe environment to say, explore that and do it in just little ways so that you can feel safe in there because you're surrounded by the right environment, the right teachers, the right partner that can create a container for you to explore that way. And so that's what I'll provide for a woman, is to say, here are ways that you can do that and start exploring with that and see what feels right. And if as soon as it feels uncomfortable, you just come back to this, and it's a dial that you can turn up or down depending on what feels right and safe. And each time you go a little bit further and a little bit further. And so you find the safety within that.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Life as a Dance. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to click like and subscribe. We'll be back real soon with more of Wendy and Patty. Thanks again, and we'll see you real soon.